Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Levin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Republicans are now returning to a familiar foil, again resurrecting their attack on health care reform. And overall, the legislation presents two fundamental questions. How will the majority offset the costs? And second, are these bills the best use of scarce federal dollars in a time of fiscal austerity? I am deeply concerned that these bills cost nearly $42 billion. It is simply unacceptable for the majority not to pay for them. It is equally unacceptable that they have not told us how they plan to pay for these bills if they intend to do so. I think it is deceitful to talk about deficits and not pay for bills costing $42 billion. I am troubled that the committee is considering these four bills before we focus on fixing the pending nearly 27% cut to Medicare physician payments. The doc fix would cost about $20 to $25 billion for a one-year fix, which is much less for a much more pressing issue than the nearly $42 billion before us today. The Republicans continue their attempt to repeal health care reform without a replacement. If their solution is expanded access to flexible savings accounts and health savings accounts, then it falls far short of the needs of American families. Neither FSAs nor HSAs provide comprehensive health care coverage to participants. They are not real solutions to the problems facing our health care system. In contrast, ACA will expand comprehensive health coverage to over 30 million Americans, and will guarantee access to affordable comprehensive coverage for tens of millions of Americans who currently have health coverage. One of the bills before us today helped ensure that health reform was fully paid for and will not add to the deficit. The repeal of the medical device excise tax would cost almost $30 billion, making up the majority of the cost before us today. The medical device industry is quite profitable and stands to gain millions of new customers through health care reform. And in 2009, this industry stood with President Obama at the White House and pledged, in quotes, to do our part to make health reform a reality. I have a copy of this letter. The first signature on this letter is the President and CEO of Advanced Medical Technology Association, along with other industry trade associations. That association committed to working to find $2 trillion in health care savings. The medical device excise tax is the industry's contribution to health reform, just as all the other sectors contributed in recognition of the fact that they stood to benefit from 30 million new customers. Some have charged that the excise tax will encourage device manufacturers to ship jobs overseas. That is not true. Devices made in the U.S. and exported for use abroad will not be subject to the excise tax. And importantly, devices made and imported abroad and imported for use in the U.S. will be subject to the excise tax, period. All devices used in the U.S. will be subject to this tax, even if they are made abroad. I would now like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Connecticut to speak on 10,004.
I thank Ranking Member Levin, and I thank Dr. Bustani, and I'm proud of the work with Chairman Camp previously on FSAs. I want to be clear that I view these as a supplement, but a very important supplement to working families in the middle class, people that face health care issues and recognize whether it's diabetes, whether it's autism, whether it's allergies, or whether it's planning for those contingencies in a health care system that if you're prudent and save for, you can use tax dollars to do it. I commend the $500 cap because I think it makes more scorable. But I would also say that our whole scoring system, and I hope we can work with the majority on this, because as we go to the floor, and I am concerned that this bill is juxtaposed against eliminating the Affordable Health Care Act, but nonetheless, I think this is important legislation that bipartisanly can be worked on to provide benefits for the middle class. And between the Sheldon Whitehouse panel, where he came up with efficiencies that can be calculated, between the Reuters document that came out with over $700 billion in savings, and also, you know, industry reports that Mr. Levin just alluded to, we ought to be able to find the money in a reasonable, practical way, and I look forward to working with Mr. Bustani and Mr. Camp to achieve that.
Thank you very much.